looks so young in that. Jermaine O'Neal, there he is, joining us now. 6-time NBA All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, and of course, played in Indianapolis. So I got to ask you, Jermaine, first of all, sweet sweater. I do love this. Game 3. I know that they're amped. They haven't had one of these bad boys in 25 years in Indianapolis. What will it be like tonight in the city, in the building?
I think it'll be electric. You know, I went to a game, I think game 4 in Indy in the conference finals, and
nice.
I was sweating watching the game, right? The energy was incredible. Obviously, it's a very passionate city when it comes to that team. One of the best fan bases, in all the sports. So I expect nothing less than them to be just crazy and excited, for Game 3 tonight.
J.O., I want to do some in-house fighting, man. The last time that the Pacers were in the NBA Finals was the year 2000. That was the year before you got there. Took the Lakers to 6. Eventually ended up falling. But how did you see that 2000 team matching up with this current Pacers team in a 7-game series? How do you like that matchup?
Wow.
That's a tough one, man. I mean, 2 different styles of play. I think from perspective, they're more physical. This Indiana Pacers team is a running gun. I didn't even realize, it's different when you watch it on television, but when you see it in person, just the speed that they have is just amazing. So I think it'd be two tales of, one team that's really physical, slower pace, and another team that really gets out, plays with a lot of numbers too. So if I had to guess who would win that, I would probably give it to the 2000 Pacers.
And those pinstripe blue jerseys are so fire. They got to bring those back.
Out the uniforms.
So, J.O., Rick Carlisle, he comes in, he takes over, 61 wins in the first year. Then he wins a ring in Dallas. Now he's back in the finals of a team, not many people expected them to be in the finals this year. What makes him so different? What makes him such a great coach?
Rick Carlisle's a basketball savant. I had a chance to play with him when I was Indy, and he's a thinker. He's one of the best in-game strategy coaches that we've seen in the game. He's a little bit eclectic, from a personality standpoint, but he's an amazing guy. He's a coach that, and we've all been around these type of coaches where, you got some that you just run through a wall for. And Rick Carlisle is one of those guys. He never seems to panic. He's not a guy that's going to look, frustrated or a little bit sped up. He's the guy who's going to stay the course. He's going to make sure his team is prepared. And that's the reason why I think the Pacers will win Game 3 tonight.
Eclectic is a nice way of putting it. He's a quirky cat.
Wait, so when you guys say eclectic and quirky, like what? Give us an example. Is it non-basketball related?
Did he used to work out with you guys back, and with the sweatpants pulled up to his chest and grunting and all that? Did he do that back in there? Or that was a new thing when I had him in Dallas.
He didn't work out with us, but he would come out and shoot around a little bit on the court. He would tuck his pants in his sock back then. So.
His pants into his socks?
But have you heard about him taping his ankles on game days? Have you heard that? I've never played for him, but I've heard that from multiple guys.
Both ankles?
You know what? Honestly, guys, I think he might have grew out of that by the time we got.
It's like they was done with it. The pants into the socks is wild.
Yeah, he's a different dude.
I do have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Tyrese Haliburton has been such a fun topic of conversation throughout this entire postseason. He has introduced himself perhaps to a brand new audience who had no idea as far as the clutch that he had. But then he also has games like Game 2 where he has, 5 points through 3 quarters, and you're just sort of scratching your head. So how do you assess? Like, when you watch Tyrese Haliburton, what are you seeing?
Again, I got a different perspective, watching him in person. He's another basketball savant that he sees the game a little bit different. I think the biggest thing, when you hear about the overrated stuff, and a lot of it is he seems like he's trying to figure out how to be a superstar, right? When you think about the superstars of our league, right? These guys have been through it. They understand it. They understand how to take over games, from start to finish. He's a natural pass-first guard. Right. And so what he likes to do is he likes to try to get people involved to open up everything. But I think he has to understand at this point of the season, this team goes as he goes. Right. And his energy when he is, head down, touching the paint, looking for his first as well and others. It's a completely different team. But when he plays the way he played, really in this, in the second game, a little bit, honestly, in the first game, too, because he doesn't make that big shot. He only has 12 points in that game, and they lose, right? And so from a perspective, I think he's learning on the job, but sometimes learning on the job in certain situations can put you under scrutiny. And I think he's going to be a lot better as he comes back home tonight. They will be better if he's aggressive and becomes an option, from start to finish. At least allows OKC to have to wonder what he's going to do next versus him standing in the corners or getting off the ball.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what does that look like? Does that Carlisle make adjustments, putting him in different actions? Is that him, taking ownership, just taking more shots, getting to the free throw line? Like, is it just being more assertive in general?
Yeah. You just have to be more assertive, right?
Yeah.
At this point, you have to have more will than another team. And, in a 7-game series, I mean, it's nothing that they can probably really adjust too much on because obviously you're playing the same team every night. And obviously, you got to tip your hats to OKC. They are a monster defensive team. They guard you from start to finish. But it's the thing with Indiana Pacers, right? When he gets open and he gets moving and shaking, it opens up so much for other people. So at least, if he's setting the pace for the Pacers to get the ball out fast and sprint the ball up the floor, it gives them a better opportunity to score.
Oh.
And another guy that he's competing against is SGA. He's the MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP. If he's able to pull this off and be the Finals MVP, that puts him in rare air with Steph, Magic, Isaiah as the best player, best point guards on a winning basketball team. Where would you stack him up so early in his career with the greats at that position?
It is early, but anytime you can, I think the league is always built off longevity. But I think you have to put him up there as one of the best young stars of all time. If he pulls that off, whether it makes him one of the best of all time, we'll see throughout his career. But right. He's done an amazing job. It's interesting to watch him because you can never tell what's going on in the game. Right? He has a very poker face at all times. You see him on the bench, and he's kind of like, damn, is he there? Is he just kind of staring? But his game travels no matter where he plays, and I think he has been amazing in these playoffs. And obviously, he's had an amazing year. So I expect for him to be what he is. I ultimately think that this game comes down to everybody else. To be honest, so really on both teams, I thought the Pacers bench didn't do as well in Game 2 as they did in Game 1. Collectively, I thought Pascal Siakam wasn't as aggressive as he needed to be in Game 2. I expect that to be different again tonight. It's kind of a strange series where it's going to take a lot of other people. I mean, hell, Caruso he went for 20, right? Aaron Wiggins went for 18, right? And I think it's going to be that type of series where you get these guys coming off the bench. Making big shots. I think in Game 1, if I'm not mistaken, Toppings, T. Bryant, and Turner hit 8 threes.
Yeah. Right.
And so, I think it's going to be one of those type of series where, stars got to be stars, obviously, and then whose reserves are going to come out and outplay the other.
Okay, so all that being said, prediction time.
Oh, no.
You mentioned that you think the Pacers get Game 3 tonight, which would make this series really interesting. Who you got winning it all, and how many games?
Oh, see now.
We almost halfway home. We 1-1.
My heart says the Pacers, only because I think their role. Well, both teams are tested, but. Oh man, y'all, listen.
Feels like your heart's saying the Pacers, but your brain's saying the Thunder.
No, you don't want to say it out loud. I got Pacers in 6. It's not crazy.
Well, a lot has to depend on Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah.
Right? It really comes down, the Pacers cannot win this series if he is not a star. Right? And he has to be a star every single night for them to have a chance to really win this game. And if he's a star, I'm taking my Pacers.
Let's go.
There it is. See, it's not crazy. No, I think we're going to find out tonight real quick. All right, let's do draft class debate because there have been some really good ones over the years. 84 and 2003, cool. But then there was 1996. That's the one that you came out.
Loaded.
17th picking that one. You got Nash, you got AI, you got Ray Allen, Marbury, everybody in it. In your opinion, what makes that class the best draft class?
The depth, right? Just the depth. I mean, we ain't even talking about the second round guys or the undrafted guys. Ben Wallace went undrafted, in that draft. So I think collectively the depth, and not only that, the longevity and success of that draft class has just been amazing. People talk about LeBron's class too as well, which was a really good class as well. But I don't think they have the same level of depth that we have. So obviously, I'm taking the '96 class for sure.
That's a good.
And you came in the league with Rasheed Wallace, Isaiah Rodder, very controversial, fun-loving, big personality guys out in Portland. I came in with AI, so I can relate to that. What do you remember about that time, being so young with such dynamic personalities, jailbird, they put all of that stuff on them? What was it like coming into the league with guys like that?
Well, I'm going to be honest, it was the best place for me. It gave me ability to have 4 years of college, kind of college one-on-one for the NBA. I will say that it was no better place for me to go to as a 17-year-old out of Columbia, South Carolina, and straight out of high school. They were well prepared. Shout out to the Portland Trail Blazers for having a system in place for a teenager, right? And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people don't really talk about. You draft players, but you have to have a game plan. You have to have tools for these players to be successful, and the Portland Trail Blazers did that. The city of Portland as well was just, I was the second son, so that made it really, really easy for me to go through my transition. But most importantly, those Rasheed Wallace, the late great Cliff Robinson, Kenny Anderson at the time, Arvydas Sabonis. I mean, we've had
a lot of vets, man.
Yeah, a lot of vets, and they change the team every single year. But Rasheed and those guys really made it easy for me to go through my process. Obviously, going against those guys every day in practice is no better learning curve than playing against those guys every day in practice. And they really prepared me for my stint in Indy.
I can't even imagine how many times you've been asked about the Malice in the Palace. I'm sure if you had a nickel, it'd be amazing. That being said, though, because I don't want to ask about it, I kind of want to ask what you think, or maybe something that we've not understood or that's been misunderstood through the course of the years in asking you about it. Is there anything that stands out about that day or that night?
Well, I think obviously I was the one that didn't really want to talk much about it. I felt like so much was lost in that process. A lot of things that people don't know, that we couldn't talk about it for 10 years. So a narrative was created and you couldn't speak about it because we were dealing with criminal, federal, like state, civil, it was just a lot of things that went on for literally almost a decade. And you couldn't say much about it. And then over a period of time, it becomes very emotional for you. Again, for me, it was all about trying to win a championship. A lot was for Reggie at the time when we were playing. And it's just one of those things where you give so much to teams. And I always say this, and I said this on a previous podcast, on Zebo's and Tony Allen's podcast, and shout out to those guys. You wake up every day to try to be best in business when it comes to how you represent your organization, how you represent the league, how you represent the community. And when you're put in a situation where you have to really be a leader, and I say that respectfully, when you are, you hear leadership all the time in the corporate world and in your home and in sports, but when you are put in a position where you have to fend for yourself and others, right, that's a true level of leadership. So from that perspective, I made a decision to defend a guy that was a teammate that was actually literally getting off the floor, and the guy that I actually hit was the guy that was on top of him, right? But the narrative was created that, not only for us as the individuals that was involved, but the league that I love so much was under scrutiny as well. Right. And so that part was something that really bothered me for a very, very long time. I'm gonna be honest. I felt like the NBA, which I love and I appreciate in so many ways, of giving me the opportunity to live a dream and create generational wealth for my family and my bloodline. But I felt like they could have did a better job, maybe not at the time, but over a period of time to speak about the character person that I am and the things that I've done in the community and what I really meant, for the Pacers and when I was playing in the NBA.
Yeah, J.O., I fully agree with that. And as someone that was on a court, when someone came on the court, I want to ask you about the Tyrese Haliburton dad situation. Is that just unacceptable? Like, even if it's a father, an agent or someone, is that better security? Like, how should that situation have been handled differently from preventing? Because what if Giannis would have punched him in the, or what if that would have escalated to something worse? How do you stop something like that from happening again?
Well, I think that's an issue across the board. I think a fan should never approach a player. A fan should never have access to the floor, and in particular, a parent. Right? I know you're energized about your kid, and obviously in a playoff series, a lot of emotions are high, but you should never run up on a player because you never know what type of day a player is having.
And you better figure out the right one to run up on, too.
He's lucky it wasn't someone else.
You better figure out the right one to run up on.
That's crazy. That's valid. Well, you know what? Hopefully lessons we're learning. We never, ever see that again, however. Jermaine, this has been awesome. We appreciate it so much. I know you're going to Game 4, so enjoy. Pacers in 6, still holding out.
Pacers in 6.
Pacers in 6. We'll be right back.
All right.
Run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run